All right, in this video, I'm going to be covering how to modify the Athena input file more automatically, developing a little Python script so that if you're setting up a huge grid of simulations, you don't have to tweak them one by one. Instead, you can use a Python script to modify the input file. Okay, and so to start with, we're going to SSH over MPA. I show how to set up this bash alias. It can also be a Z shell alias in the first video, I believe. And first of all, I need to grab my phone and do this two-factor authentication step. So I'll do that momentarily. Okay. Now I have to enter my real password. My less secure password. I guess they're kind of secure together. All right, and then I don't remember where I want to do this exactly, but I guess I'll just go to Freya. So the kind of purpose of this video is I basically just did this, and so I thought I might as well make a video of it as well in case it helps some other people, or for myself to sort of a self-documentation that it's useful to go over this with new students. Okay, so I'll go look at Athena MHD. Yeah, modify input. So I'm gonna we'll do make.dir modify input video, and I'm going to copy the input file from here into modify input video. And so this, so most of the Athena inputs files, it doesn't really matter what you call them, but the test problems all have ath input dot and then kind of related to the problem name. So ath input dot rt, ath input dot orsag-tang. This is for related to the cloud crushing problem, and so it could have followed that naming convention, but again, it doesn't really matter what it's called. So let's take a look at this real quick. And I guess I needed my X forwarding set up. All right, good. I don't really think that would be necessary for just using Vim. But okay, so in general, we have these sort of blocks that specify what the parameters found within these blocks are related to. And I don't think it matters if you have a space here. I think that it's more of just when the whatever in C, whatever sort of textual processor that they have, maybe they have it in Python even, because this is just used for initialization. So they read, no, I think it's in C though. So they read this output file, or input file rather, and then grab the parameter values and then assign them to some variables, something very similar done in Flash and probably most astrophysics codes. Okay, so let's say that we want to, what we actually did was in the problem, we wanted to modify this DRAT. So this is the density ratio between the cold, dense cloud and the hot, tenuous wind. So initial density ratio of 100, which is appropriate for galactic winds. So let's modify that. I don't remember what I tweaked there. Oh, I added a new line and then deleted it. So let's go ahead and get set up in Vim. I guess it probably would be better to do this locally rather than on the cluster, since the input file is tiny. So you could just copy this file to your remote machine and do the development in Python using a nicer editor / integrated development environment, IDE, like Sublime Text or Atom or Visual Studio Code. But we'll just do this, we're just going to do this quick and dirty. So we'll call it modify input. We're just going to write this Python file from within Vim. Okay, so modify input.py. I'll start with the print begin modify input, and then end with a success modify input. I like to do this in case there's a bunch of warnings that gets spit out, and then we can still know whether things kind of worked or not. So we'll start with the import. I don't really know if I need any imports. I'll probably want some at some point. But so we're going to start with open, and then we can actually name it in case you want to call your file name something different. We'll call it input. So we're going to open that as fid, and then we'll do maybe lines as fid.read lines. And then that's the only thing that you really have to do with the file open. And then for line in lines, we'll just print them first and see if this is working in the way that I'd expect it to work. So let's take a look. Yep, so that looks pretty similar to the actual thing. There's kind of an extra, seems like there's extra white space here, but that's okay, I think. All right, so we're probably going to want, we might as well store each of these parameters kind of in a dictionary. So we have a key value pair, and then maybe we have a dictionary of dictionaries. So we'll have a different dictionary for each block. So to do that, oops, we'll open our modify input file, and instead of printing line, we'll say if these angle brackets in line and the closed one in line. So that should, I think, uniquely identify those different blocks. We'll say, we'll have a params dictionary. We'll say params of line is equal to a dictionary. I don't know if I want to, I probably want to at least do a line.line replace and remove any extra white space that there is, and then also remove if there are any. So this is the new line character, which is going to be, should be present for every line in here to kind of tell the text editor where to make a line break. So even in this Vim file, there should be new line characters which are invisible to us, which is nice because it would look really ugly. There are some ways to, I think, turn them on, but for the most part, they'd be really distracting. So it's better for them to not be there, I would say. All right, then elif. So if it if the line is one of these block statements, then we set params of that block statement to a new dictionary, and then we're good. Otherwise, if the equal sign is in line, so we'll skip over those just empty lines. If the equal sign is in line, then we want to say params of line of, well, that's not going to work so well. So let's go ahead and call this block. So assigned to line, and then params of block. And so we're calling this a new variable so that we can still use this thing to index the params dictionary. So params of block of, well, so now we're going to need to do a line split, actually, rather than, and we're going to be splitting, so the default split, like string split function in Python splits on white space characters. We're instead going to split on the equal sign, and then we're going to say key value. I could also call this maybe name value or whatever you want, really. So we're going to set the key equal to the value, and then, but we're going to want to do something similar here. And so we might as well even just create a little function def, I don't know, clean string. Clean string has a nice ring to it. So we'll say, like, I don't know, var. There's probably a better way to name this. Should probably be somehow related to string. And we'll say var is var.replace. So really just doing what we did with line here before, and we could just copy paste that actually, but it's not too many characters to just retype, I guess. And then here we can just say line, or really block, is assigned to clean string of line. And the reason why we're doing that is so that we, instead of having like this code duplication, having this show up at least 3 times, we can say key is assigned to clean string of key, and value is assigned, or maybe I'll just call it val, and then they're both 3 characters. It's probably better to, so that's the other benefit of if you were using Visual Studio Code or a nicer IDE than using Vim, is then you could tab complete, and then in that case you might as well use longer variable names just to be more explicit and hopefully more human intelligible. In Vim, I mean, there is kind of an excuse that you want names to be as short as possible to reduce the possibility of typos and also just like keyboarding fatigue. Okay, and so that should be good, or at least maybe it's good. I'd say at this point we've typed out, you know, a number of things and might as well start testing a little bit. So let's go ahead and print out params just every time we loop through the line, and we'll add an input statement so we can pause. So you can also actually use this input statement for, I don't know, for video games or for other reasons. Pretty much all my scripts, I basically just use it to pause execution. There's probably like actual Python debugger that maybe be a better way to do this, but it's a way to kind of manually debug. Okay, so we have this new line character, so that didn't get stripped. So that's a problem. So, that's interesting. Oh, it's because we reassigned block to line. So we undid the work that we did in clean string. So just get rid of that. And so that's why, yeah, it's good to test. Oh boy, that's even worse. So in this case, we have some none thing, which is set to an empty dictionary. So what happened here? So we'll print block. Yeah, so a little live debugging. And then, yeah, we'll just try that. So block is none, and so it makes sense that our dictionary right now is none. It's assigned to empty dictionary, but why is it none? So we have block is assigned to clean string of line. Okay. Oh, it's because we never return. So this, you know, does some manipulations to this thing that we input, but it doesn't return anything. So end clean string. So you don't have to do this in Python. It's kind of a holdover from bash/matlab/fortran. But I think it's kind of nice. You don't have to do it though. But I feel like it's kind of self-documenting. Okay, that looks better. So we've got job, and this is assigned to an empty dictionary. So let's step through, and we have now within job, we have our first key, which is max out, and assign the value of 3.0 as a string. Maybe we want to save this as a float instead, but we'll just save it as a string for now. And then num domains, and then cloud. And yeah, so this seems to be working fine. I didn't notice any issues. So we'll just remove the input statement, and we'll go ahead and print params at the end. That would be kind of ugly looking like that, especially when it's everything. Okay. Oh, I had a typo. I think it would have been okay with Python 3. Okay, so yeah, we have all this stuff, and at least visually looks fine, I would say. And so now so we can actually also make this into a function so that you can call this like outside of, yeah, I don't know. So there are different levels of sophistication this could be made. I guess let's just make it a class and be kind of nice and proper. So we'll call it class modify input. And so we'll inherit from object, which is what implicitly happens. At least it's what used to implicitly happen if you didn't specify. And so this is also the major downside of Vim. Maybe there's a way in Vim to do multi-line indentation. I don't know about it though, unfortunately. So I mean, this is a pretty small script. It's not too many lines, but this is another reason to not use Vim for like massive development. Ideally only for small scripts where, I mean, yeah, probably more realistically, I wouldn't make this a class. I'd just do things more of on the quick and dirty side, but I guess that's okay. All right, so any class needs an input or init function, and then every method of a class. So method is just, I don't know why we do this, but if you don't have a class, then you have like functions in Python, and when you do have a class, we call those methods of the class, just to be confusing. Okay, and so we might as well pass in fname, and then this reads it, and then we have our def clean string, and that can be a method of modify input. It doesn't have to be. I mean, this could be just outside of the class. So it is pretty, well, I mean, it is related to this input file. So maybe it's sensible, actually. And then here we'll say def get params, we'll pass self, and then we'll just, unfortunately, do another round of indentation. Oops. Okay. And get params. Oh, and then we're definitely going to want to return params. Or we could just save it as a, oh, that's also a problem, right? So I guess we'll just save this as self.lines is assigned to lines. Or we could just do it up here. Okay, and then this get params is going to assume, well, fairly that init has occurred, and therefore there are these self.lines to run through. Okay, and then how, all right, so then we have an n modify inputs. And so just to make sure that that's kind of still working the way it was before it was a class, do a if name equal to main. And so this is going to be present whenever this script is executed, but not if it's imported from, which is nice because typically what you have in here you don't want executed when it's just being imported. Okay, so if name equal main, then we're going to do have our modify inputs instance, and we'll set that equal to modify inputs, and we need to pass it some file name which we'll call input, and then we're going to do modify inputs instance dot get params, and we'll save that as params, and then we'll print params, and we'll see if that still works. So we'll add a couple of new lines just to not have confusion with what's up there. Okay, so I must have a typo, so modify inputs, modify input. Okay, yeah, I mean, we're only, oh, we could be modifying more than one input, but only one input file. Definitely some confusion there. Internal confusion. All right, just do end if. Okay, clean string is not defined. Oh, right, so in order to, yeah, so that's another difference with classes, is to execute a class method, you need to do self.cleanstring, and then self.cleanstring, self. Oh, and so by the way, the way that I get rid of when I'm searching for something is I just type a bunch of gibberish. Fun fact, that's like one of the highest rated Stack Overflow answers that I've seen, was someone was asking on related to Vim, like, or maybe VI even. So you can search for stuff by typing in colon and then slash and then whatever you want to look for. So we were looking for a clean string, and then someone was asking, okay, how do I undo this? And there were some people that gave legit answers, but I mean, kind of the easiest thing is to just type gibberish. The downside is that you get this annoying pattern not found thing, which I don't know how to get rid of except for doing like typing colon and then typing escape a few times to get rid of it. All right, but anyway, let's try that again. And yeah, seems to be working the same. So great. All right, and then the thing that we are actually, kind of the purpose of this video is defining some like set param. Well, I guess there's two more functions that we're going to want to do. So do self and then params. So we don't have to do that. I mean, we could, instead of returning and passing in params here, we could just say self.params is params, or just use self.params the whole time to make it a, I'm trying to remember what the class thing, like a class variable. I don't remember what it's called exactly. But we're just going to pass it around. Okay, so inside of set param, so we're going to want params, and then we're also going to want, we'll say key. We're going to need the block, we're going to need the key, and we're going to need the value. So then it's pretty simple. Then just params of the block that the user is telling us they have some parameter that they want to modify. And then the key, we're going to set it to value. And then we can just return. So simple enough. And then kind of crucially, we're going to say, I don't know, save params, sure. Self, and then we'll pass in params again. Okay, and then basically we're going to be reconstructing an input file. So we're going to at least temporarily say, all right, so with open, we're going to call this temp.text. And then we won't be overwriting inputs in case we screw up, which probably there would be some bug initially while writing this. And then we're going to say for block in params, we will write params of block, and then we'll add in a /n. And then for, I don't know, for key in params block. So yeah, if you iterate over a dictionary, it iterates the keys. I kind of sometimes still like to do this thing, and sometimes you might have to cast that to a list, maybe depending on the Python version, I don't remember. But we'll just do it a little bit less explicitly, but fewer lines, I guess, is the trade-off. And then fid.write. So we're going to write the key plus an equal sign plus the value. So the value is going to be params block of key, and then we need a new line character. Okay, and then we're going to write another new line character when we're done writing the parameters inside of a given block. And for and with, and then end save params. Okay, and then, I mean, actually the last thing we'll do, but we won't do it right now, so we'd want to do os.system. Yeah, I don't know, maybe we'd also input a param name, and then we'd do a cp, or actually probably move temp.text to param name. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if that works. I don't think that I actually called the save params thing. Nope, I was still just doing get params. Okay, so let's go ahead and do I return params? I do return params on a set param. So let's do params modify inputs instance dot set param. So we're going to pass params. We're going to set or pass the block, which is problem, and we're going to pass the name of the key, which is drat, and then we're gonna pass it a value of 10.0. So remember, this was originally 100. Yep, couple typos. All right, and then yeah, I'd like to keep my lines 72 characters or less typically, but 80 is okay-ish, I guess, kind of borderline. Okay, and then it'd probably be good to test it there, but I'm pretty sure that'll work. So we'll just do modify inputs instance dot save params, and we'll pass in params again, and then we'll call param name input. So we'll eventually be overwriting our input file. All right, let's see. So yeah, this is a dictionary, and yeah, it makes sense that I wouldn't like that. So this should be some key. So what did I do wrong? It's line 42. So we have params of block. So this is a dictionary. Oh, I just want this to be block, not params of block. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, maybe it worked. Why did we get all these print statements though? Interesting. Oh, we're printing out the block. So yeah, that looks fine to me. And then this printed nothing because we weren't returning the param. So I guess we might as well do that. I don't know if it makes that sense to do it, but we will. All right, and so let's look at temp.text, and yeah, this looks pretty good. So this, I mean, in comparison to input, where all these like the values are all lined up, or well, at least the equal signs are all lined up. I think that it makes things look quite a bit nicer, and ours are not because we're just adding one white space character after the equal sign in every case. Otherwise, it looks correct, I would say. So if we look at drat, it did indeed get set to 10. And then, ooh, this comment, what did that comment look like before? This comment, we kind of lost all the white space for it. Right, because when we were, for the values, we were stripping all the white space. So let's just remove the comment as well. So we'll go to modify input, and then in our clean string function, we'll also do a var assigned to var, say if we have a comment character in var. In that case, we'll say var is assigned to var dot split comment character in the first block of text that comes before the comment character. Okay, and then the other thing was that the so with this equal sign, let's try to line them up. And so let's do an lljust. So this is a string function. Let's do lljust of, I don't know, 15. I mean, one thing we could do is we could loop through all the keys and get the max length and then add one. But this will probably work close enough. All right, and then let's look at temp.text, and yeah, it looks a lot better. Let's see if there were any strings that were longer than 15 characters in terms of names. Nope. And so yeah, that looks pretty good, I think. There might be, I think there's a little bit more white space. I'm actually not sure. So this is column number 17, and for temp.text, we have the equal sign at column 17, so it's actually the same. So sweet. All right, so then the only thing that's left is uncommenting our os.system_move command. So we're going to move temp.text to the param name that we pass in. So we're going to overwrite the input file. And we forgot to import OS. So I did need one import. All right. And now we can look at input. And we do in fact have drat as 10. Okay, so why more generally would you want to do something like this? Well, let's say that instead of just setting instead of just setting DRAT to 10, you actually wanted to set, I don't know that this is really like best setup for this, but let's say that you wanted to test a ton of density ratios. You wanted to do 1, 3, I don't know, 5, 10, etc. Maybe you even do np.linspace or np.logspace to set all these up, which would probably be probably be the better way to do it. But let's just say that maybe you don't want to do like a ton, but maybe you have like 10 or so that you know what you want to do. And so otherwise you'd have to go into the input file. And it wouldn't take that long to do this, but you'd have to type 100, you'd have to type 30, you'd have to type 50, etc., etc. Whereas with this, we can say for DRAT and DRATs, we're going to, and so now it's a little bit too long. Say string of DRAT, and now it's too long. So now we're going to, let's keep it to 72 characters. Now we're going to set this to a new line. All right. And then we are going to, and then let's just call it, do a DRAT and enumerate DRAT. So this gives the, so then instead of having like a separate counter for I, or instead of, we could also do for I and range len of DRATs, and then assign DRAT to DRATs of I, but this just kind of does things in one step. So it saves us a little bit of code. It's not, I don't know if it's the most, it's definitely not the most important thing. All right, and then I'll just save it as string of II, and then we'll give that a try and see if it works. Maybe. Yeah, and so now we have all these input functions, and so you could further like amp up this script where not only does it create all these input files, but let's say that we have, Athena in here, then it could create a new directory. So I'll do this kind of manually and say like DRAT 10, then we'd want to copy Athena to DRAT 10, and then we'd want to copy our input 1 maybe, or probably it was input 3 or something, into DRAT 10. And then you could modify the input script to do os.system makedir commands to make a directory for each one of these. And then you could also submit jobs that run them. Okay, and yeah, speaking of which, I think in one of the next videos, I'll talk about how to submit jobs on a remote cluster, since we haven't talked about that yet. So I hope that helps. Have a good day, and bye.